What's happening, beautiful people? Welcome back to another live stream right here on Cassius Morris Official. The king is back, ladies and gentlemen. Back in my stead, back for another live stream. Let me just say, by the way, as somebody who's been a creator for a very long time, let's normalize taking short breaks off of social media without making a big explanation or rationalization for people. I'm of the firm belief, folks, that social media is a lot of hard work. A lot of people see it as not being a real job or maybe a job for people with soft hands, which is fine with me. I mean, look, if my hands are softer than you and I'm making more money, I guess I'm winning all around. But honestly, dude, normalize taking breaks. Normalize getting off the internet for 1 week, for 14 days. Go out and touch some grass, because no matter how well you're balanced in life, no matter how much you manage to do your job online and also get out into the world, this shit does affect you. This shit is bad for your mental health to do it every single day. But of course, the king has got to come home and jump back on the microphone as well. Lots been going on in my world. A lot has been going on in the headlines. But like I said, I decided to take a little pause. We had the whole Jimmy Kimmel fiasco happen since I was last on stream, which it's probably good I didn't rush to make any comments on that, because a lot has developed in the story. We're going to talk about that here in this stream. But of course, the main event, the main topic that we're going to be looking at is Joe Rogan voicing some serious concerns and questions about the whole incident that happened with Charlie Kirk. Now, I have to tell you guys, I didn't think that coming back after this pause, I would even be talking about the Charlie Kirk situation, to be completely honest with you. This is a story that I figured would probably last for a couple of days, but to my surprise, and I'm actually happy that this is the case, the story has lasted weeks and weeks. We're now over 2 weeks since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and this story is still gaining traction and still gaining momentum as people want answers. People are not satisfied with the answers that we've had so far and the details that we've gotten, although there have been many developments. So let's, I guess, hop into this clip just to get things kicked off, get things started. This is Joe Rogan on a recent episode of his podcast, speaking on the fact that he feels there are many inconsistencies, many questions about the death of Charlie Kirk. He's not buying the official story, and even going as far as to say that he believes there are parts of this story that are being hidden from us, hidden from the general public. So let's listen to what Rogan has to say. I have not heard the clip yet, and I will jump in to make some comments throughout the clip. The one thing I see in the chat, if I just, share my opinion as we go, is people will say, shut up and let the clip play. If I shut up and let the clip play, the chat says, Cassius, why aren't you talking? We want to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to try to hit that perfect balance right in the middle. Let's see if I can do my commentary and try to please most of the chat. Let's run this right now.
He set it up in a way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate, right, according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on with this.
I know.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombings.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place, and then he did this at this thing, right?
So real quick, for anybody who doesn't know who Rogan is talking about when it comes to the decoy, the guy who was falsely arrested, that person goes by the name of George Zinn. So this man here was arrested as the initial suspect for Charlie Kirk, having, allegedly killed him. And people are not only very suspicious due to the fact that this dude was cleared and he was not the person who killed Charlie Kirk. He appeared to be used as some sort of distraction, some sort of decoy. But this dude has also been present at most of the major protests that have happened since 2020. And even going back as far as 2013, he was present at the Boston bombings, the Boston Marathon. So this is one of those false flag guys, allegedly, who's been present at all of these incidents. That's what's raising suspicion. Just a little bit of context about this George Zinn character.
Who starts yelling out, didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombing. See,
all the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place. And then he did this at this thing. Right after, so somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, I did it, and takes his pants down or something like that. I don't know exactly what he did. Then, ready for this? He gets arrested for child porn right away.
Right after this happened?
Oh, right.
Which is exactly what happened, by the way. So, again, I'm trying to add context for anybody who's not familiar, because Rogan is speaking on this story as somebody who has actually been looking into it. So this dude, George Zinn, who, again, was present at 9/11, was present at the Boston bombing, and all these different events, and also has connections to BlackRock, by the way, just like the shooter of Donald Trump. Okay, when we look at crooks, when we look at all these guys who happen to be present at these events, this dude, George Zinn, not only was at all these events, he had ties to BlackRock, but right after this thing happens with Charlie Kirk, he's somehow arrested for CP. So basically, he's off limits for anybody to reach him.
Right away, he's in jail for child porn. Why is that? Well, now you can't interview him.
Right, right.
Right, and because when the internet people start going, how are you at all these different things? Like, what are the odds? Like, if someone ran it through one of the ChatGPT fucking perplexity things, like, what are the odds that this guy would be at all those different events and be involved? Like, zero.
This is the guy?
Yeah.
I just like that the pants down part is just insane to me. It's like, why is your dick out, dude? I did it.
Listen, I'm not saying this guy isn't insane. He's clearly insane. Yeah. Or not. Or he's professionally insane.
Right.
That's where it gets squirrely.
I almost texted you.
Well, of course he's insane, but at the same time, like, here's where I get confused. Why do we keep acting like there's such thing as a coincidence to this level? Like, you're telling me this guy was at 9/11, he was at the Boston bombings, he was at Black Lives Matter, I believe. I think they said he had ties to the 2020 stuff as well. So this dude is on a world tour, a cross-country tour. He's in New York, he's in Boston, he's in Utah. And he just happens to be there for all of these events. Again, people talk about conspiracy theories. To me, it's a conspiracy theory to think that this isn't a plan. Like, if you genuinely think in any sense of reality that there's a possibility that this man just so happened to be at all of these events and it's not some sort of setup, I think it's actually a better chance that you're a conspiracy theorist. Because you'd have to be not that bright to really think that.
I think this guy isn't insane. He's clearly insane. Yeah. Or not. Or he's professionally insane.
Right.
That's where it gets squirrely.
I almost texted you when the Charlie Kirk thing happened because my antennas went up about, they showed the photo of that kid, or the guy that they have, the 22-year-old, whatever. And I was almost going to be like, dude, you think he's got the capability to do that?
Yeah, well, listen, there are people that look like that have the capability to do that.
Pretty accurate.
Nope, no? Not hard. Not hard at all. Let me dispel that. Okay. 200 yards from a prone position with a dead-on rifle. So if you have a dead-on rifle, so you set this rifle, you set your 0 to 200 yards, right? You know how far you're going to shoot. It is not hard at all.
He shot a lot?
You don't have to shoot a lot. So I could do it tomorrow.
If you're no, but you are experienced. If it's someone that's never shot, could they do it?
100%. Not if they've never shot. They wouldn't know where to look. They'd have a hard time acquiring the like when you look through a scope. Like when the reticle is weird, like it sometimes
takes a minute.
You got to know the distance that you have to be from it to really line it up in your sights. But you could get a guy like my friend Andy Stumpf, who was a sniper in the SEALs. You could get him, and he could show you how to do it in an afternoon, and then you could hit steel at 200 yards every time you pull the trigger.
One day you.
So that's been one of the main points of debate, guys, is whether or not the person who fired the shot from about 200 yards away was skilled or not. Now, I've had people who called into this stream on past streams when the news first broke about Charlie Kirk, saying that this was a pretty skilled shot. Not saying it would have to be like, an expert military operative or something like that, but basically saying that the precision shot from 200 yards away on Charlie Kirk required a decent amount of skill. That's what one side is saying. And then the other side is just flat out saying this requires no skill. A kid could make that shot. I want to see what my chat is saying, because it has been a point of contention in this story. Do you guys think it was an expert shot, or was it not that hard of a shot? Because Rogan's saying it's not a hard shot.
You could learn
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah. Not that hard.
Because it feels insane to me. I'm like, that seems tough.
It seems tough. It seems tough. We still haven't figured out whether or not the gun that shot Trump had a sight on it, because we weren't sure if it had a sight on it or if this guy was using iron sights. That was 140 yards. If you shot it with iron sights, that's a lot harder, because iron sights is you're lining up. So you have these two things in the back and there's one thing at the front of the barrel, and you got to line those bitches up perfectly, and that's how you stay accurate. That is a lot harder to do.
It's like old shotguns have those, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Pistols.
Yeah,
like
pistols
you buy a
got 'em.
Glock,
Yeah.
that's what it comes with.
Right.
But this kid had a rifle with a scope. Now here's where it gets weird. The first images of this rifle with a scope, I swear to God, it looks like he has a composite stock on it. Like it looks like a modern 30-06 rifle. So a 30-06, so that's the rifle. 30-06 is like, that looks like a very modern looking stock.
And by the way, just a quick comment. I hate to sort of be off topic, but Rogan mentioned the Thomas Crooks, of course, the Trump shooter. Why don't we know what kind of gun that guy had, the guy who shot at Donald Trump? Why don't we know not only that, but every single detail about the guy who shot Trump? I mean, there's still people talking about Lee Harvey Oswald and JFK and all this shit from decades ago. There's still people analyzing that and trying to dig in and find new information about all those people. You would think there would be the similar sense of urgency to find all the details about the guy who shot at the sitting president. Like, shouldn't there be some sense of urgency to know everything about Thomas Crooks, not just accept that there's nothing about him and nothing about this Charlie Kirk shooter and nothing about this George Zinn guy? It's like every person who's a shooter nowadays, well, we don't know anything about them. There's no trace. Except for evidently when they're linked to BlackRock or in a BlackRock commercial or doing informational videos for BlackRock. That seems to be the only thing we can find. I think there should be an equal appetite to find information about these guys.
I mean, it might not be. It might be just a bad resolution. It might be wood. It's hard to tell. But if you showed me that and you said, hey, this is my cousin's rifle, is this any good? I'd be like, looks like a standard bolt-action rifle with like a sophisticated modern scope on it. Sure. Now, apparently, the narrative is that this is his grandfather's rifle from World War I and doesn't have a serial code. Okay.
Interesting.
What?
Okay. Why? Wait.
So this is a breaking development for me, at least, guys. The gun that was used to assassinate Charlie Kirk was allegedly a World War I weapon, but had no security code? Let me hear some more.
Serial code.
Or serial code, rather. I said security code. I'm not a gun guy. I'm Canadian. We're not allowed to use guns because apparently we don't have the right to defend ourselves. It's a disgrace.
Interesting.
Okay. Why? Wait. Why are you using such an old gun? Like, that's kind of crazy. Like, is it possible that an old gun can be that accurate? If you have a gunsmith and they work on it, yeah, it's totally possible. You have a really good gunsmith and he sets. If you're like a nostalgic person, you like driving an old car, you could bring it to a mechanic. They could redo the brakes.
Sure.
So if you got a good gunsmith and he took a look at that and the action was true and the bore is good, yeah, you could conceivably shoot with a gun for hundreds of years, right? Guns don't necessarily go bad.
Right, they don't expire.
Right, and especially because all this stuff, like the trigger and the action and all that different stuff is replaceable. So you could just it's compartmentalized. It's components. That's the other thing. They said that he took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
To disassemble a gun.
To disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not going to fit.
Not going to fit in a backpack.
And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof? What? What's that about?
Is that what they pitched, huh?
Yeah. And then he's supposed to get it in that stupid fucking backpack. It's
interesting. So they're saying that the guy disassembled this weapon to have it fit in a backpack, brought it on the roof of the UVU campus, and then reassembled it in plain sight, got in a prone position, and then prepared to shoot Charlie Kirk. Like, again, I'm no expert, but that sounds like bullshit to me. You know that feeling when you're not an expert and you may not even know all the details of the story, but it's like that gut feeling where somebody can just tell you this feels fishy? That's the sort of, that's what I'm leaning towards. I'm not in the FBI. I'm not in the military. I'm not a gun expert. I'm none of these things. But the one thing that predates all of that is the human gut feeling. And the human gut feeling is not something that can be quantified. It's not something that it's not tangible. It's not something that you can measure in any way. And it's not necessarily based on anything. It's not based on experience. I could go to a city or town I've never been to and know nothing about this part of town, but if I go to that part of town in a dark alley at night, I can get a gut feeling that I shouldn't be there. Now, it's not based on prior knowledge. It's not based on any factual evidence. It's just a gut feeling that something isn't right. That's the feeling I get when I hear this story. Because here's the thing with an investigation. This much I do know. When you're investigating something that's as straightforward as a broad daylight murder, I would imagine that you should probably be coming away with more answers than you are questions. Like, why is it the case that we're investigating this shooting? It happened in broad daylight. It happened in front of a massive crowd of people. In public. This was not a mystery. This is something that happened in broad day. In a place where there's cameras everywhere. As we investigate this story, why are we coming away with more questions than we are answers? Normally, look, I watched the first 48. They say, okay, this dude was parked here. He waited for this guy outside the McDonald's. Well, the guy died an hour later. Why is that? Well, it's because he followed him up the road. Okay. The more you investigate, the more answers you get. In this investigation, the more they investigate, the more inconsistencies there are, the more questions there are. Now, I'm not saying it's a huge conspiracy. I'm not saying anything. But what I am saying is that I think all of us who are looking at this, whether it's me or Joe Rogan or you guys in the chat, I think a lot of us are feeling, that gut feeling. And that doesn't mean I have the answers, but it does mean that something ain't feeling right.
Not going to fit in the backpack.
And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof? What? What's that about?
Is that what they pitched, huh?
Yeah. And then he's supposed to get it in that stupid fucking backpack. It's literally, it makes no sense.
And the elevator music was a nice touch, by the way.
Yeah. So this is just a narrative, right? Yeah. We watch a guy jump off the roof, and then we supposedly find this rifle. So if you can have a guy that's in the audience that's yelling, I shot him, now shoot me, I shot him, now shoot me, and then that guy gets arrested for child porn charges, like he's like, what is going on here? So and then weird. You find this rifle, and then you say, oh, he assembled it and he reassembled it. Like, okay. A lot. If I wish I was a cop, I'd sit in a room like, this story is horseshit. Like, yeah. none of these things make any sense to me. Like.
I feel like the decoy, like, I get what Rogan's saying, because the decoy with George Zinn being the fall guy to distract while this other guy got away is the most suspicious part of the whole story. Like, the fact that this guy was there causing a scene, look at him pulling his pants down, causing an absolute scene at the UVU right after that. It does not check out. It does not add up. And again, I have some details here about George Zinn. So this guy who originally distracted for the shooter, he's 71 years old. Like I mentioned off the beginning, for anybody who wasn't here, this dude has been at every single event of tragedy or mass tragedy in the USA, from 9/11 to the 2013 Boston bombing, to all these other different events and protests, this 71-year-old man has been there and has been present. He's shown up at all of these political and government events on a regular basis across the entire country. A 71-year-old man who's self-funded, of course, not funded by big government, not funded by Soros or anybody else. That's what they expect us to believe, that this guy has been on a countrywide tour on his own dime, and he just happens to show up at all these events. That's the first thing. So the man, when he was caught, he shouted, "I shot him, now shoot me," to the police. That's what this guy George Zinn was saying. His actions caused confusion, slowed the investigation, and fueled conspiracy theories online, which of course was the perfect opportunity for the actual killer to get away. Sources report that this guy George Zinn has been on law enforcement radar for years due to past threats and disruptive behavior. He's seen as someone who repeatedly clashes with or provokes government authorities in America. Definitely not a foreign agent for any other government. I mean, how could you think such a thing? How could you even believe there are foreign agents or operatives in America trying to distract and run narratives? And no, how could you think that? You're a conspiracy theorist. You're crazy. This is just exactly as they told us it is, and there's nothing to it. And how dare you question it? Hope you guys are getting what I'm putting down here. His false confession added a layer of chaos to an already explosive case, and because of his history with threats and government run-ins, some speculate he may have intentionally tried to create political confusion. So that's the background on this decoy who was there. And by the way, if he was being so closely monitored and watched by the government, why did this dude get away with having CP on his computer? You're telling me that this dude was monitored for years, but you're telling me that they weren't able to see what's on his computer? What a crock of bullshit. And bro in the chat said, wait till they come for me. Nisa, you know what? I made a decision the other night because I told you guys that I had backed off of this stuff a little bit because I was worried that if I blow up enough, they would come for me. Guess what? I want them to come for me. All you motherfuckers who are running game and pushing these narratives and confusing Americans and confusing good people out there and trying to kill people and trying to silence people, it's up for you guys. 2025, 2026, next year. Cassius Morris is on your fucking necks. You understand me? And if you want to come for me, you should come for me because I'm going to be a loud, problematic voice for you very, very soon. I highly recommend you come for me expeditiously. Unless you want a real problem.
If I wish I was a cop, I'd sit in a room like, this story is horseshit. Like none of these things make any sense to me. Like you're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet.
Yeah, we saw didn't they have video of him jump? Somebody had a cell phone video of him jumping
There's
down,
a video
right?
of him jumping. So this guy, whoever it is, jumps off of the roof and lands, whether or not he's even the guy who shot him. Mm-hmm. Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe he did it.
I feel like he's a plant. Did you see the video? Did you see the person doing the investigating on his mom's Facebook?
No.
You haven't seen this? Have you seen that, Jamie? Some dude online.
His mom's got a weird Facebook. I spilled coffee.
Very trippy. It doesn't make any sense. Like the more they keep looking into it, the more they're like, this doesn't feel like a real. It feels super fabricated.
But here's the thing. Just like I was talking about when people are arguing on social media, it's all part of the plan. If you want things to be,
I wanted it so bad. Buckets.
If you want people to lose all faith that anyone is going to solve anything, you add a bunch of, if you're going to kill a guy, you add a bunch of other wacky shit that doesn't make any sense, and you spam it out there at the same time. You leave a gun that didn't do it out in the woods. You do a bunch of shit like that.
You have an old man put his dick out and yell, I did it, I did it.
Yeah, you get some kid who has a boyfriend who's a furry, and you
boyfriend
talk
is a
to him
furry?
on Discord. I think he's a furry. I don't want to disrespect.
I don't know if that's a real thing.
His boyfriend's definitely a guy who became a girl.
And wears furry stuff.
I think they do furry sex. Or furry games, excuse me.
I see the chat asking about sources for George Zinn. Guys, if you want sources, there's this incredible website called google.com that I usually visit before I live stream. And what you can do there is you can look up facts about things. It's really a revolutionary website. You can look up facts and information, and then you can actually write it down and share it with people. So that's typically where I know it's a pretty obscure source, but I typically like to visit this website, this startup website called google.com. And many websites, New York Post, BBC, The Guardian, there's many websites. So yeah, that's typically where I like to get if you have a better source for information, then certainly you can let me know, but that's typically where I go. So Joe Rogan coming out with a pretty strong stance about this whole Charlie Kirk thing and saying, look, I don't believe anything these people are telling me about this assassination. Something stinks, which I think this was a pretty good statement from Rogan because, again, Rogan is leaning into his shtick, which has kept him safe over the years. Because one thing we all know about Joe Rogan is, well, actually, I don't know if everybody does know it. One thing that sensible people can realize about Rogan is that his entire career is an act, okay? When we're dealing with Joe Rogan, we're dealing with a guy who is masquerading as the everyman. We're dealing with a rich and powerful member of the elites, which is exactly what Joe Rogan is. You know, people have this hilarious concept, this funny idea about Joe Rogan that he somehow is outside of the elites, that he somehow is like one of us that has like found his way to have a seat at the table. That is the most laughable thing I ever hear about Joe Rogan. That shit is just endless comedy for me because Joe Rogan is the elites. Joe Rogan is a multi-millionaire. Joe Rogan has lived in and around government and Hollywood circles for his entire life. Joe Rogan is the definition of the elites. He's no different than any of these people, but he is different because he's smarter. And this is the genius of Joe Rogan. Even if you don't like him, you have to admit it's genius, is that Joe Rogan masquerades himself as the everyman who knows nothing. He will make all these incredible points. He's very well read. That's the thing about Joe Rogan. He tries to act like a dumb guy, and he'll call himself a dumb guy, but he's not a dumb guy. Joe Rogan is very intelligent, and he's very well read, and he has a lot of knowledge about a lot of different topics, especially history and politics. But the way he keeps himself safe is by pretending he doesn't know anything. Hey, I don't know, man. I'm just some stupid guy asking questions. I don't know, man. I'm just some guy. Meanwhile, this random guy has managed to build the largest media platform on the planet. This random guy is friends with the President of the United States. He's friends with the richest people on the planet. Elon Musk, all these different guys. He's friends with the directors of the FBI and all the people who run this country. But no, he's just an idiot. Joe Rogan's just some dumb guy. Because the richest people in the world, the smartest people in the world, the most powerful people in the world, they have a seat at the table for dumb people, is what Joe Rogan wants us to believe. So he's with the smartest people. He's with Elon. He's with people who run companies. He's with the people who founded AI, the people who run the country. And we're expected to believe that these guys just have a soft spot for dumb, lovable guys. That at the table with Elon and Sam Fried and Trump, there's just some dumb idiot who knows nothing. And he's one of us. And I got to tell you guys, I got to hand it to Joe Rogan for passing off that narrative. It is fucking unbelievable how many people have eaten up that narrative hook, line, and sinker, but it's not true. Joe Rogan is very smart. Joe Rogan is very calculated. But it seems that he's reverted back to his act of I'm dumb, I'm the everyman, I'm just a guy asking questions. But that's kept him safe, and I think Rogan is realized that he needs to slink back into his act, because I think Rogan realized he was getting a little too real on the Joe Rogan podcast. Rogan was getting a little too real, because here's the thing about Rogan. Rogan has very staunch opinions about many things. Rogan is he knows where he stands. This is not a guy who's in the middle. This is not a guy who's questioning where he is politically, especially. I don't think most people realize how right-wing Joe Rogan really is. But he's managed to keep himself out of that spotlight by perpetuating this act. And I think he realized after he had Trump on, after he started sort of cozying up with the right wing and the MAGA and that whole crew, he started losing a lot of audience. And he started having a lot of people looking at him differently. And I think he noticed that a lot of people were starting to notice what I'm telling you, which is that his whole career is an act. Joe Rogan is a fraud. There's really no way around it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not talented. And usually I don't even like to speak on Rogan because there's an unspoken rule in the game. And the unspoken rule of the game is this. You typically don't speak on the king. That is no matter what you are in, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's podcasting. Typically the move is just never speak on the king. And Joe Rogan, when it comes to this space that I'm in, is the king. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say he's not the king. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to say he doesn't have a massive influence. I'm not going to say he doesn't have a massive platform. But what I am going to say is that Joe Rogan is a fraud because of the way that he portrays himself. And I think a lot of people were starting to realize that. So now Rogan is sort of scurried back into his hole of not sharing his opinions and alluding at things and basically having all these innuendos so that we can put together how he feels, but he doesn't actually have to say it. So in this clip, he doesn't say Charlie Kirk was a setup. He doesn't say it's a conspiracy because that would take courage. That would take authenticity. What Rogan is saying here is, hey man, a lot of inconsistencies and I'm not saying anything. But the innuendos and the whole thing. So interesting to see Rogan taking this perspective. The other thing that I will say is I can definitely agree with where he's coming from. I think that at the end of the day, there are a lot of inconsistencies with this murder. And one of the weirdest things too was to me like the outcry from government about this. The outcry from the U.S. government, the way they've handled it. I think it's very suspicious the fact that Netanyahu made multiple statements about this. If you look at Netanyahu, he made another statement just a few days ago about Charlie Kirk, which to me is really, really suspicious, to be honest with you. And I know they'll say you're hateful if you question the great and powerful Netanyahu, and if you question Israel, you're anti-Semitic and you hate Jewish people and all. Give me a fucking break. All right, seriously. If there's one piece of propaganda that I refuse to fall for on this platform, it's the fact that you cannot be critical of Israel without being called an anti-Semite. It is not anti-Semitic to question Israel. It is not hateful to question their motives. And as a matter of fact, based on the way they conduct themselves as a nation, I think it's actually our duty to question Israel. I think it is imperative that we question Israel. And there is nothing hateful about it. If this country wants to be a major player in the world stage, they will be questioned. They will be held to the same account. Simple and plain.
Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood
Bro, this is like a SNL skit. You got to be shitting me right now. If somebody disagrees with me, I don't only welcome it, or I don't only not have an issue with it, I welcome it. Is bro serious right now?
Charlie,
this is like the clip when he's on Nelk Boys. He's like, you guys are censored? Podcasts are censored? Who's censoring podcast? You should be able to say whatever you want. This dude is hilarious. The gaslighting is crazy.
This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for. And I knew that his suggestions always came from the heart, from his love for Israel and from his love for the Jewish people. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding. What I do know is this. Charlie Kirk was a great man and a great...
You think people are suspicious of Israel because of Qatari funding? Prime Minister Netanyahu, with all due respect, if there's even any to be had, people are suspicious of you because of you. People are suspicious of your country because of the way they conduct themselves as a nation on the world stage. That's why people are suspicious of Israel. Not because of Qatari funding. I think there's a lot of people with no funding behind them that are suspicious of you. So the concept that only people who are in with the Qataris or Iran or whatever country you may be blaming at the time are suspicious of you is absolute horsebile. We see what you do, we hear what you do, we read what you do, and people become suspicious of it. This isn't a mystery. This isn't a conspiracy. You can see and hear.
Man deserves honor to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding. What I do know is this. Charlie Kirk was a great man, and a great man deserves honor, not lies. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be a blessing.
So, see, here's the thing. When everybody was first rushing to spout these conspiracy theories, because here's the thing about all of these theories about Charlie Kirk's death. From where we're standing now and where it officially stands, all these theories are conspiracies. There's no question about it. Now, I'm not here to co-sign any conspiracy theory before we have all the answers. I'm not here to say that this is how it happened or that's how it happened. But what I am here to say and really take a look at, and I think it's almost like intellectually dishonest not to point this out, is the fact that all of these actions after his death from world leaders and all of these explanations from world leaders, those are what's actually pushing me to believe some of these conspiracy theories in a certain way. Now, I'm not fully in it, signing off on any of them quite yet. But for example, the theory that Israel was somehow involved in Charlie Kirk's death, the fact that Charlie Kirk was pushing back against Israel before he was killed. Literally the day before he was killed, he was on a podcast with Ben Shapiro pushing back on Israel, saying that they have lots of control over the United States in many different ways. So people started linking that right away, I think naturally, because it's perfect fodder for a conspiracy theory. None of that is what made me even consider this to be a possibility. It wasn't people online talking. It wasn't Candace Owens. It wasn't any of these folks that are trying to connect dots arbitrarily. The only thing that has made me question whether or not this might actually be somewhat in a crazy world true is the way that Netanyahu is responding to this. If you are the prime minister of a country, why do you feel the need to make a video about something that's not even true? If there's a conspiracy going on about somebody in government, first of all, that's normal, okay? I can't think of one world leader, one prime minister, one president of the United States who doesn't have conspiracy theories about them. There is no such thing as a world leader that doesn't have conspiracy theories about them. And we've heard many conspiracy theories that are going on where people don't come out and make a video like this saying, these are horrible lies, this is ridiculous. So that's the thing that makes me question it. If you're running a country, you're in the middle of one of the biggest wars in modern day times, you are being prosecuted or attempted to be prosecuted by many different people, many different countries. You can't even fly in their airspace. This guy can't even fly in the airspace he wants to because people want him tried for crimes against humanity. And you're telling me that the most important thing you had to do that day is roll out of bed and make a video about the fact that you didn't kill Charlie Kirk? I don't know about you guys, but if I'm Benjamin Netanyahu in September 2025, that's the last thing on my fucking mind. Because this dude is in a world of trouble. This dude is in a living hell. This dude is in one of the most contentious social political situations we've ever seen in human history. He has blood on his hands, the likes of which we have never seen before. And he found that this was important enough to actually make a video about it, to get in front of a camera and say Israel did not kill Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm not here saying that Israel did anything to anybody. But what I am saying is that if you're not guilty, you're sure doing a poor job of appearing that you're not guilty. I mean, the fact that you even had to make this video and that this dude had to make multiple statements on Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk wasn't a government official. Charlie Kirk was not a political figure. He was by proxy because of his commentary, but Charlie Kirk, you know, they're treating this guy like he was a president. They're treating this guy like he was the VP. This is absolutely absurd. And that's really the point that I have to put out today. The fact that these guys are having such a strange response to this, and they really feel the need. He needed to get in front of the camera and say, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Well, dude, if I am accused of killing somebody, I'm just not going to react because I didn't kill him. If I'm not guilty of something, if somebody says, boy, Cassius, your purple hair looks terrible today, I'm not going to make a 2-minute video talking about my hair because I don't have purple hair. And I never had purple hair. So it's not a concern for me if somebody says I have purple hair. That's typically how it works with somebody who's not guilty. I'm not going to sit here and do a diatribe over something that I didn't even do, especially with the state of the world that this dude is in. And I'm telling you that all this stuff, this is my prediction for 2026. I think that more people are going to become conspiracy theorists than they've ever been, because people are. You know, people are incredibly skeptical. I saw a couple comments in the chat about this too. The fact that people are overly skeptical about everything, and it's actually taking away from the real tragedy. So that much I can say 1,000%. It's a shame that a guy like Charlie gets killed, and then all of these discussions really take off, and what we lose is the fact that a father was killed, a son was killed, a husband was killed, and he was taken away from his family, which to me should be the important piece of all this. Like, that to me is the piece that really matters. But that gets overshadowed in a world like today, in a time like we're in now, because everybody's suspicious. Everybody's suspicious of something. Everybody feels like there's something deeper going on. And oftentimes there is. Oftentimes there is, to be completely frank with you. Because things like this don't often just happen without deeper implications. But the one thing that's crazy to me, though, is that all sides have become conspiracy theorists. The right, I think, is no stranger to conspiracy theories because they're the OG conspiracy theorists. Like, And guess what? The right, by the way, has a very good track record with their conspiracy theories, I do have to say. The right has a very good track record. They had quote-unquote conspiracy theories about 9/11, which most of that is coming out that is very factual. 9/11 is the most obvious conspiracy theory that is probably, there's many inconsistencies there that the conspiracies, like the theories aren't as much as theories anymore. A lot of that's been proven. A lot of that is coming to light now. The right had conspiracy theories, and I put it in quotes, about Jeffrey Epstein. I was one of those 4chan kids back in the day telling my family at the family get-together that the powerful elites are going to a sex island. And that this guy has a sex island, this rich guy that nobody can explain where his money comes from, that the rumor was that he has a sex island. Now, I was the crazy guy at the family get-togethers too, like many of you were. I was the black sheep. I was the guy who might have a screw loose because he thinks that Jeffrey Epstein has a sex island. Well, look how that turned out. There were a lot of conspiracy theories about vaccines and the lockdowns attributed to right-wing extremists that were very accurate. Very accurate. A lot of harm done from vaccines. A lot of inconsistencies with the lockdowns. A lot of inconsistencies with all of it. So the right wing actually has a good track record of conspiracies, but now we've been pushed to the point where everything's a conspiracy for both sides. So now the right wing has their conspiracies. Some are true, some are ridiculous. But the difference we're seeing now is now the left also has conspiracies. You would not believe how many people I personally know who were very left-leaning who still don't believe that Donald Trump actually got shot. I know dozens of people who genuinely believe that Donald Trump got up there in Butler, Pennsylvania with a blood capsule or something the likes of it and staged a fake shooting, which, by the way, killed somebody else in the audience. There's multiple people dead from this incident, and they're not fake dead. They're really dead. You go and check with their families, they're really dead. People genuinely believe, because it's Trump, and because people are so skeptical of him, especially on the left, that that was a false flag event, that that was some sort of staged conspiracy. So conspiracy is running wild to the point where it's uncontainable now. Conspiracy is running wild to the point where it doesn't matter what side you're on. People don't believe anything anymore. Which is, by the way, a predicted side effect of the pandemic. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole on this one, but it's a predicted side effect of the pandemic. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend you read it. It's called The Great Reset by Klaus Schwab. And it talks about the great reset of humanity after the pandemic. Now, this is not going to be a book that you like when you read it, but basically one of the things that Klaus Schwab wrote about, who's a very evil man, but he's in control. He wrote about the fact that after the pandemic, people will have lost so much faith in government, in policing, in the FBI, in all of our systems of governance, that they will not trust anything anymore. This all went on 2019, 2020, 21. We're in 25 going into 26 now. I would say that's more accurate than ever. People don't believe a goddamn thing anymore because people don't trust the systems. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the FBI. And guess what? You shouldn't trust them. But that doesn't mean that we always have the answers. So that's what I say about this Charlie Kirk thing. I would personally say, if you feel like there's an inconsistency, maybe going the Joe Rogan route is actually the best way. Just say, look, I'm not an expert. I don't have the answers, but I feel like there's something fishy about this. I think we need to go more towards that vibe, kind of like a Joe Rogan vibe. I think for our own mental sanity too, because Everybody has the answers now. You ask one guy, they'll say Charlie was killed by the Mossad. You ask another guy, well, he was killed by Trump's team because he was going to turn on Trump. You ask another guy, he was killed by a crazy transgender Democrats because they're all crazy. Everybody has the answers. That's the place that we've gotten to in 2025. Everybody has the answers, but we don't have the answers. But I think people are clinging so hard to try to have some kind of answer about something that they're actually willing to make up an answer because it feels better for them. Humans are really interesting in the way they're hardwired because we need the answers. That's where religion really stems from in the first place. Because if we don't have a meaning to everything that's going on in life, if we don't feel like we have some sort of answers or a means to an ends, many people lose their way in this life. A lot of people can't handle just living life not knowing what happens. People need to know in their head that there's a God or there's a heaven or there's a hell. They need to know something. That's where most of our systems come from. So when we descend into a time where we don't know anything, we feel like we don't know anything. Well, that becomes very dangerous. It becomes very, very dangerous for, I think, the fabric of modern day society. Wow, that was quite a performance there. I really just channeled into my zone. But guess what, motherfuckers? We're breaking it down. And I told you guys right now, I'm sitting here talking about this. I'm not scared. I told you guys, I'm coming for it. This year, I'm breaking it all down. I don't care what they call me. I don't care how they try to frame me. I don't care if they try to come for me. Because the one thing I've noticed is the best and most courageous people in 2025, they're all getting called names. The best and most courageous people that I want to be like in 2025, they're all typecasted, and they're all pushed into a corner, and they're all attacked, and they're all labeled. If that's what it takes for me to spread these messages, I will happily undertake that. You can put thorns in my back and knives in my back and stones on my feet and beat me up and do whatever you need to do, but we're going to get on here and speak it real. We're going to get on here and speak it real. That's ultimately what it is. So what do you guys think, man? We're going to pull up another clip, too, of Rogan talking about this whole situation, but I think we're in a very dangerous time because, again, everybody wants to pretend like they have the answers. So the other thing that happened, the other development that broke was the fact that Jimmy Kimmel was fired, quote unquote fired, I guess canceled, for his statement on Charlie Kirk. So I guess we should really go full on the story. Let's go ahead and look at what Jimmy Kimmel said, because I haven't even covered this on the show. So long story short, Jimmy Kimmel made this joke talking about Charlie Kirk. He was removed from the air, and then he was reinstated a couple days later after a massive backlash. So I just want to go ahead and I want to find the actual clip. It almost seems like it's being suppressed. Here it is here. So this is the comment that actually had Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air. So at the time he was taken off the air indefinitely by ABC. Let's take a listen.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Okay, just play the goddamn clip. I hate when these people do this shit.
We were just about to walk in. Interesting.
Hang on a second. We're going to find this clip. One thing about me, if I say I'm going to play the clip, I play it.
Shooter of Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Nexstar, a major owner of local stations in the U.S.
See, that's not all he said. He made some sort of joke. I'm going to try to find it one more time. Let me just go Jimmy Kimmel, Charlie Kirk joke. Damn, that spelling was terrible. Okay. Here we go, the full comments. So why are they suppressing these comments? I mean, if it wasn't that bad, they should have no problem with us seeing it.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
Okay, so Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I was just waiting for the part where that was supposed to be funny. I'm not sure. Was this supposed to be funny or is it not supposed to be funny? I mean, last time I checked, late night shows were supposed to be comedy. And I remember a time when there was late night shows and then there was an offshoot of late night shows that was like political brands. So Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert. There was the actual late night shows, and then there was the other shows that were supposed to be kind of a political play on it. What seems to have happened since about 2016, really ever since Trump won the first time, was that all of the late night shows pivoted into that category. So at first it was just Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert who were trying to do the political angle of late night. Then somehow Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon and all these guys, suddenly they became like a shitty version of Colbert and like a shitty version of Jon Stewart and Bill Maher, where all of a sudden all the late night guys became political activists. And that's when they lost me. I don't find it funny. If anything, I think the show should be canceled just because it's not funny. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with left or right. I just see it as glorified political activists masquerading as comedians. But the material isn't even funny. So I don't understand it. Now, Jimmy Kimmel was removed from the air indefinitely, which only lasted a couple days for those comments. Donald Trump came out jubilant, happy about it. I guess we got to play... we got to play all the different clips just to keep you guys in the loop. So this was Trump reacting to Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air. He was very happy.
Saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Interesting. So fired for lack of talent. Now, there was a big spin on this that people tried to put, which was that Donald Trump and the administration had Jimmy Kimmel fired. The Trump administration is censoring the American people and censoring what should be able to be said on the airwaves. That was the big thing, where actually the reality of this story is that Jimmy Kimmel was fired indefinitely, or suspended, I should say, by ABC. So this was not a government action. This was not the Trump administration who took him off of television. He was taken off television by ABC. So a couple points about this. One, I find it hilarious that the left is trying to make this a political thing, when really he was taken off the air for making a joke that was in poor taste about somebody who died. I would be willing to say that if Jimmy Kimmel made this joke about a different celebrity, if he made it about a singer who had passed away or an actor who had died, I think, first of all, the audience would have taken it worse because they have more humanization for those people. Somehow these political commentators like Charlie Kirk have become like cartoons in people's heads, so they don't even take them as real people when you're making fun of their death. I think if he would have done this about a different singer or somebody who was famous, it would have gotten a bad reaction from the audience, even worse than this. But also, I think he definitely would have been suspended either way. The other thing that I find hilarious about this is the fact that people are now wanting to cry about censorship now that it's actually happened to the left. That to me is the funniest thing. And I know we're going to play the clip here from Rogan. Rogan agrees that this is a equally bad situation for the left and the right when it comes to censorship. But why are we acting like we're not already at that point with censorship? We just had a story that came out that admitted that the Biden administration heavily censored social media, Facebook, X, and YouTube to not only distort information about the pandemic and censor opposing voices about anything to do with vaccines, anything to do with the pandemic or the research about COVID-19. But it's also just been released that the Biden administration blocked people off of YouTube for having differing political views. They removed people such as Sneeko and such as Nick Fuentes and all these different people who, whether you agree with them or not, is not the heart of the debate. These people were removed because of their views. They were removed because their views were consistent with the right wing, what many people would call the alt-right or the extreme right, and they were deplatformed because those views were considered unacceptable. They were taken off the internet. Their ability to earn was hindered. Now, as all this happened, the President of the United States was then removed from Twitter at the time, before it was X. So we had censorship of everybody on the right or even neutral political figures for talking about COVID, complete dissent on them for trying to offer a different perspective. There was large-scale censorship of anybody who was going against the left wing, against Biden, who was supporting Trump. Anybody on the right wing with a voice was being heavily censored all through the last couple of years. And on top of that, the president himself was censored from even speaking. Nobody seems to have a problem with that. Nobody on the left had a problem with that. You can censor the president. You can censor his supporters. You can censor people who are doctors and people who have actually helped create vaccine technology. You can censor that because that doesn't fit with their narrative, and that's the correct narrative. But the second you actually apply what was being done to the right to the left, now it's a problem. Now it's censorship. Now it's authoritarianism. But it's not authoritarianism if you're blocking people we don't like. Right? You can block Trump because fuck Trump, he's a fascist. And you can block these anti-vax people because they're evil. And you can block Nick Fuentes and Sneeko because they're monsters. Because you feel they're monsters. So that's cool for you over here. But Jimmy Kimmel is where it crosses the line. So it's the inconsistency for me about it. I don't think there should be any form of censorship on anybody. Was the joke in poor taste from Jimmy Kimmel? Yes. Was it funny? No. But if he wants to say that joke and deal with the outcry of it, well, that's his thing. I don't think we should stop him from being stupid. If anything, if somebody has something stupid to say, I think we should give them a microphone and turn it up really loud so that we can actually understand where they're coming from, so that we can actually understand these people's rationale, these people's mindset. That's what we should really do. If somebody is saying something that's not accurate, or they're saying something wrong, or they're saying something misleading, I don't think stopping them from saying it in a certain venue is the answer, because they're just going to keep saying it anyway. I think if you're not concerned about what somebody's saying, you should actually amplify it to show people how stupid they really are, if you in fact think they are stupid. So that's the one thing for me. I don't agree with the censorship element, but the inconsistency of it, that's what gets me. You can censor everybody on the right indefinitely, all the time, always. But then when you get a little taste of it, well, that's wrong. I'm not buying that. And I would even go as far as to say that the people who don't understand the anger on the right now, the anger, the Frankenstein, which has been created by the left, and the reaction, the sharp reaction that we're seeing now in retaliation, I think this should provide some context and understanding as to why people on the right are so mad right now. Because one iota of the censorship that's been applied to them has been applied to you, and now you're angry. But just imagine if it wasn't only Jimmy Kimmel. Imagine if you lost your job, or you lost family, or you were blacklisted from family get-togethers, or you lost your platform on social media. This has been happening to the right, to the other side, for a very long time. A very, very long time. Almost 10 years now, we've had people being victim to this. And not a word of complaint from the left. So it doesn't fly. It doesn't fly. Let's listen to Joe Rogan's statement here, talking about the Jimmy Kimmel situation. I've yet to hear his statement. I'm very curious to hear what he has to say.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
This whole Jimmy Kimmel situation that is happening right now.
Yeah, wild.
Very wild. Okay, first of all, the FCC is you have to have a license to broadcast, which is kind of crazy when you think about what that means now. Because, like, what does it mean? It used to mean that you used to have a license to broadcast because you were going to influence so many people. They had to make sure that you were on the up and up, right? So they had to make sure that you didn't swear. So if you had a license and you were on CBS or NBC or ABC, you could not swear, right? That was the rule. And then on came cable. And somehow or another, cable
changed the game.
Is a different thing, right? Because cable, you just you have to pay for it, I guess, so it's different. And so then some of the channels you don't have to pay for. It used to be the only ones that swore were like HBO, where you had to pay for. And then all of a sudden it became kind of any of them because they realized, like, hey, we don't, like FX, we can swear, guys. Like, we only don't swear because we want to think of ourselves as TV.
Right.
But HBO was like, you know, with The Sopranos, with HBO comedy specials, in the beginning, that was a big one. You could just swear. Movies, you didn't have to bleep anything out, just wild. And so these, what you're dealing with even, like, first of all, I definitely don't think that the government should be involved ever in dictating what a comedian can or cannot say in a monologue. That's fucking crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, if the problem is the companies, if they're being pressured by the government, so if that's real, and if people on the right are like, yeah, go get them, oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this. Because this will be used on you. You don't think that the fucking globalist lizard people who run the world are sitting here going, great, what do we got, 3 years? We'll wait this out. We'll wait this out. Yeah. Let them say the government should be involved in censoring people's speech. Yeah. Let them support that. Let these fucking dumbasses, because Jimmy Kimmel's a leftist, let these dumbasses think it's a good idea and we should celebrate.
That's the most toxic shit I keep seeing online when people are like, yeah, shut him down.
So going.
Interesting. So Rogan's saying this will be used against the right, but not acknowledging that it has been used already. I mean, I just went through all the examples. I do think it's a pretty good point, though, again, because here's the thing that people seem to be getting wrong about freedom of speech is that they only want to support the freedom of the speech that they like. And this has been coming from the right and the left. That's the biggest inconsistency. I think MAGA has been very inconsistent when it comes to this. I think they, maybe tried to put their best foot forward, but MAGA has been just as inconsistent with the freedom of speech angle as the left has been. Because you never see anybody supporting the speech they don't like. They try to still shut it down. But then when they want to say some shit, it's like freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is supporting the right of the person you oppose to say their piece. That's what freedom of speech is. Freedom of speech is not, I can say whatever I want and you need to shut up. So I think we've forgotten what freedom of speech really is, and that's part of the problem here.
As a leftist, let these dumbasses think it's a good idea and we should celebrate.
That's the most toxic shit I keep seeing online when people are like, Yeah, shut him down.
So going back to this Jimmy Kimmel thing, there's a lot going on with this.
Do you know him, by the way, or
yes.
no?
He's a good guy. Jimmy's a good guy. He's a smart guy. He's a funny guy. He was always very funny on when he did that fucking Windy City Heat thing.
I love that. It's such a good movie.
I think he tried to distance himself from that.
Oh, big time.
Like very, very, very successful because it's a 25-year prank.
What's his name? Perry Farrell?
Yeah. No, let's not mention him.
Okay.
Because
I know.
litigious. Let's just have people go find it when he City Heat. But you see that and you go, oh, that's the same guy. Like, yeah. Well, so one thing that does happen to guys.
Yeah, it's called becoming a shill. It's called getting discovered and becoming a fucking shill for money. That's exactly what happened to Joe Rogan. He used to be funny and now he's just a mouthpiece.
Well, so one thing that does happen to guys as they get older is, they soften their ways and they change who they are and they change how they interface with the world. And, and then if you're in Hollywood, you are also addicted to an ideology. And it depends on what kind of style you have. So if you have a funny, mocking style that is like satirical, that's always making fun of things tongue-in-cheek, like Norm Macdonald, perfect example. Norm Macdonald, even if he's making fun of you, is not going to piss you off to the point where you tweet about him. Because if you do, he kind of won. He kind of got you. You know what I mean? So it's like Kimmel has this sort of go fuck yourself style. Look, it's kind of ironically, he celebrated in his monologue when Tucker Carlson got fired.
Well, first of all, here's the thing with Joe that I think is, again, dishonest, especially as a guy, and we'll play the clip, but especially as a guy who's been in television for decades. Joe Rogan knows as well as I know that what you see on TV, like Rogan is speaking as if what you're seeing of Jimmy Kimmel is a reflection of who he is as a person. When Joe knows goddamn well that every single word Jimmy Kimmel says on television is written and vetted by the people at ABC, and it follows the exact script he is being paid to promote. It follows the exact same ideology that he's being paid to promote. So there's not a shred of authenticity in anything Jimmy Kimmel is saying in a late night monologue. And that doesn't just go for Jimmy Kimmel. That's anybody. So the idea that Jimmy Kimmel is being prosecuted for his thoughts even is ridiculous. We don't hear Jimmy Kimmel's thoughts on TV because he's a paid agent of a company who's writing a script. He's reading a teleprompter. Jimmy Kimmel could be the biggest Charlie Kirk fan in the world. We would never know it. So let's not act like this is a reflection of who Jimmy Kimmel is. This is a reflection of his masters at ABC who write him a script. There's 20 people in a room who are paid by that same company. They're all paid by the same company. Let's not act like this is like a podcast here where he's getting up and telling us how he feels and he's being prosecuted. He's a mouthpiece.
It's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of a problem that he, in his monologue, talked about how it was the right thing to fire Roseanne.
Yeah, I remember that.
A little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
A little bit of a problem. Also a problem that he thought he made a joke about the unvaccinated people shouldn't get hospital care if there's people who are vaccinated that need that room. I think the joke was, oh, vaccinated person who's had a heart attack, come right in here, sir. Unvaxxed person who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy. Like, that was the joke. Like,
yeah, did you guys see that joke? So that was the other joke about that Jimmy Kimmel put that a lot of people were upset about. So yeah, Jimmy Kimmel basically said, just because I want to add context to what Rogan is saying, that people who didn't have the vaccine deserve to die.
Hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Wow. Unbelievable. Who gobbled horse goo, by the way, when it came out that ivermectin was actually a very effective treatment. Very effective treatment. By the way, Cassius Morris, proudly unvaccinated. Proudly unvaccinated. Pure blood. Motherfuckers, guess what? I have a kid. Pure blood. No poison running through this motherfucker.
I'm unvaccinated. And I was like, that's kind of a fucked up joke, but I'm not mad at him.
No, it's a joke.
It's just a joke.
It's a joke.
But it's like, those things weren't a problem. But this one thing where he said it was a low point. What did he say? I want to be real clear. Let's like pull up his actual quote, because what he said was not bad. It wasn't accurate though, but it wasn't bad. He was just trying to set up this joke of Trump, which was good.
It was a great joke.
It was very funny.
But the setup was a little wonky. I do remember listening to it.
It was also like it's the problem with doing it that way on Monday is that by Sunday night they already knew that this guy, his family had been saying that, again, I don't even know if he really did it. But this person who they're talking about,
the plant,
this person who they're talking about, whether or not he did it or didn't do it, well, the FBI is now investigating deeply and further, by the way.
Yeah, we'll find out.
So Kash Patel did say that. Whatever that means.
Yeah, that was it's a weird phrasing when he goes, they're trying to pin it as anybody but them.
Yeah.
Asserting that he was a MAGA
Well, this is the thing. In the beginning, people thought he was. So the first reports were that he was a hardcore right-wing guy, that he was a registered Republican, which he may or may not be. Sometimes people go back and forth, you know. And then the other thing was that he was a groiper. So he was a Nick Fuentes fan. That was some other stuff that was going around.
What's groiper?
We'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
Hold, please.
Yeah.
Rogan's like, shit, I just gave a massive plug to Nick Fuentes. He's like, oh, shit.
He was a groiper?
I'm surprised Rogan even knows of Fuentes in such a readily available way. That came straight to Rogan's mind there.
So he was a Nick Fuentes fan. That was some other stuff that was going around.
What's groiper?
We'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
Hold, please.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in a bit. When you have Nick on the show, we'll get into it.
And it came out that, no, his father is a law enforcement guy?
I don't think that's true.
That's not true?
I think that's what that was part of the story, but I think later found out that wasn't
Right.
true also.
So
what's true?
Some family members, by Sunday, the Utah governor was saying that family members were reporting that this young man had been wrapped up in some very hardcore leftist ideology. So this had already been released on Sunday. So on Monday, if Kimmel had just said, you know, it was a tragic thing that Charlie Kirk died, and let's see what the president thinks about it. Goes right to him, and like, what if the fourth stage of grief?
It's a great joke.
It's a great joke. The whole thing was great, but the problem is,
it wasn't a great joke. It wasn't even funny. Like, literally, politics aside, Charlie Kirk aside, that wasn't a great joke. You know, when I think of a great joke, I think of Richard Pryor. I think of Eddie Murphy Raw. I think of George Carlin. How the fuck are you going to sit there, Joe, as a quote-unquote stand-up comedian, who I say quote-unquote because the stand-up is terrible. I mean, Joe Rogan's stand-up is just terrible. It's really not funny. A Joe Rogan stand-up show is basically people paying to see the king, paying to see Rogan and sort of suck at his feet because his stand-up is horrible. But the joke wasn't even funny. If it would have been a super funny joke, maybe I could understand it, but that's why I didn't understand why Kimmel even went there, because it wasn't funny. Like, if I'm a stand-up comedian and I get up and I do a show 2 days after 9/11, I'm not going to try to incorporate that into my monologue. Like, so, a couple planes hit some buildings. Why are you even talking about people being murdered in a stand-up monologue? That, to me, is the first confusion. Because, again, late night shows are no longer comedy. It's now some sort of glorified political activism. There's nothing funny, remotely funny, about anything to do with this situation. Even if Trump was cold towards Charlie Kirk after his death, I fail to see the humor in that. I think it's actually quite concerning. So I don't understand how does this situation cross over into a stand-up monologue? I don't understand that.
It's a great joke.
It's not a great joke.
See what the president thinks about it. Goes right to him, and like, what if the fourth stage of grief?
It's a great joke.
It's a great joke. The whole thing was great, but the problem is, we had already known by then. Again, at least the narrative is that this kid is not a MAGA.
Unbelievable. So basically Rogan's saying that the censorship, I mean, look, Rogan had a pretty decent point here, is that the censorship is not good because it can trickle down into both sides. That's sort of my takeaway from it. So when it comes to the Jimmy Kimmel thing, we can wrap up this story this way. I would certainly agree that the censorship of Jimmy Kimmel is not good. Again, I think that if there's going to be an outcry, it should be a public reaction. So if you say a bad joke that's in poor taste, I don't think you should be removed from the airwaves. I think you should have to face the public reaction to that. So if the public really hates what you had to say and the public wants to boycott you, or the public wants to watch you less, or the public wants to blow up your mentions, I think that should be the reaction. I don't think that removing somebody's ability to speak should be the answer. But I do think we have to reconcile what these late night shows actually are. Are you trying to be funny, or are you trying to make a political statement? Because I don't understand, again, I don't understand the crossover. Jimmy Kimmel is doing jokes about people dying of COVID-19. He's making jokes about a 31-year-old father of two being shot in the neck. I don't find these topics to be funny. I just, can someone explain to me how that's supposed to be funny? I'm not understanding it. I'm not making the connection. So that to me, I think, is the takeaway from the Kimmel thing. Is this supposed to be funny, or is it supposed to be a political statement? Because if you want to make a political statement, make a show like Bill Maher. Bill Maher is a stand-up comedian. He made his show as a debate-style show. There's a little bit of comedy, but Real Time with Bill Maher was the perfect example because it wasn't supposed to be a comedy show. It was supposed to be a political show hosted by a comedian, so it would therefore sometimes be funny. But that show was actually pretty serious. That show was debating and bringing on people from different sides of the aisle. So if you're a comedian who wants to pivot into politics, that's a conversation we can have. That's a pivot that you can make. You look at a guy like Bill Maher, he made that pivot. You look at a guy like Dave Smith, he's making that pivot very well. But here's the difference. He's not sitting on the Legion of Skanks podcast doing political content, just like he's not trying to do comedy in his political skits, or his political panels, rather. You don't see Dave Smith on Piers Morgan cracking jokes, and you don't see him on Legion of Skanks doing politics. It's not a world that bridges. It doesn't cross over well. So that, to me, is the sticking point with Kimmel. If you want to be in politics, Jimmy Kimmel, well, go run or something. Get off my TV with your political propaganda, because there's nothing funny about it, and it's very see-through. Shout out to the chat, man. Let's see what you guys are saying. I see he politicized it and made it a right-wing thing. Completely agree. What does that have to do with the Trump administration threatening to take away broadcasting rights? Well, that has nothing to do with it, Jason. But again, if we want to talk about the Trump administration taking away broadcasting rights, I think that's a serious thing. I think that's a serious thing. But again, it's hard. It's hard to feel too bad for these media organizations when their form of freedom of speech is inciting violence, when they're calling everybody a Nazi, when they're calling everybody Hitler, when they're saying that Donald Trump is an existential threat to our society as we know it. I don't think we should take them off the air. But again, when we're, for me, I'm concerned about freedom of speech for individual citizens. When you're watching a news anchor on television or a late night host, like I said before, that's not freedom of speech, because it's not their speech. This is speech that's being pre-made by a company. I think companies potentially should have boundaries on their freedom of speech more so than the individual. If there's going to be any boundaries on freedom of speech, I don't think it should be for individual citizens. I think it should maybe be for, let's say, an ABC. I think if they said, look, you can't go on TV and call the president Hitler every day, I think that's probably would be pretty good when it comes to restrictions. I don't think we should, I think if somebody really feels that way, they should be able to say it. But I think that there should maybe be restrictions in the way that you do it. If you go on TV every day and say this guy is Hitler, someone's going to take a shot at him. And if somebody takes a shot at him and you keep doing it, well, that tells me that you're kind of cool with it. So I don't have the answer. Maybe when I run one day, I could have the answers. But I do think when it comes to Trump's administration going after that, there should be something changed. But it shouldn't be restriction. But it needs to be accounted for that this is not individual speech. This is not individual opinion. And when you hear these news people spouting topics, it's not a representation of their opinion. It's really not. And maybe that's why a lot of people were surprised by ABC taking Jimmy Kimmel down. But look, here's the thing. ABC is viewed as a liberal network ran by liberals. But the company is the face of it. So the people at the company, that probably doesn't line up with how they feel. I would be willing to bet there's a lot of people at ABC who really liked Charlie Kirk. There was a lot of people at ABC who are probably staunch conservatives who support Donald Trump. So we can't look at the opinions being voiced by these companies as a representation of how they actually feel. That's why I think it maybe branches away from free speech, because it's not free speech. It's programming. It's being written with an agenda to have a means to an end. So it's not the freedom of speech that you or I have. I think it's interesting, but I could totally see both sides of it. I could see both sides of it. And if somebody had the argument that nothing should be done, I think that's also a valid argument. I think what should change is not the ability to say what you want to say. I think that, why do people feel like they have to say it? I think that's what we need to look at. Why do these companies feel like going on every day and saying Donald Trump is Hitler is the answer? Whether or not you should say something doesn't directly correlate to whether it's right to say it or that you should be. You know what I mean? You have the ability to say it. That doesn't mean you should say it. What are people saying? Was Trump's video fake? I don't know what video you're asking about. Marcus says free speech is free speech. Free speech is for speech you don't like. It's a slippery slope. I've never watched Jimmy one day in my life. Lori says, I never heard of woke until Biden and Harris came into office. I could see that. So yeah, guys, I mean, let me know what you think. I'm definitely curious to see what you guys say. Somebody says, have you seen Trump's speech at the UN? Don't have any issues with it. I did see it. Do I have issues with his speech? Not necessarily. I mean, I think do I agree with all of his speech? No. But I don't think it's anything that we haven't heard from Trump before. Same old rhetoric. Same old rhetoric. I think his points on immigration are quite strong. You know, I mean, I don't know. So let's go to Jimmy Kimmel. Before we wrap up this story, there's a clip of him coming back on the air, crying like a baby and begging for forgiveness from his overlords, from his masters. Shout out the chat, man. Let's hear what Jimmy Kimmel had to say. Scraping and bowing to his masters at ABC.
Clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand
it's important for me as a human as I read it off a teleprompter that 19 other people wrote in the back room. It's very important for me to express my human opinion that 48 people wrote for me, and it's on a teleprompter.
But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual.
What? Dude, did we just watch the same clip? It was, hang on a second. It wasn't my intention to cast blame on any specific group. Here's the opening of the joke.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. And
so if he's not one of them, then who is he? And vice versa. So we heard that clip. Now let's listen to this clip again. This is the fakest shit I've ever heard.
But I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't...
That was the definition of your intention, Jimmy. That was the definition of your intention.
Construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
I love playing these back to back. It hits different when you play them back to back.
You understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
What?
I
Are
don't...
you serious?
I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on politics at all. I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever. And also, selfishly,
But it is a solution when you're okay with unvaccinated people having a heart attack, Jimmy. Boy, that paper will make a man fall in line. Let me tell you something about this stuff right here. It's a very scary thing. I've seen men change their entire moral compass because of this. I've seen people change how they feel about family and about friends and about the state of the world. But you get a couple dollar bills and give them to somebody, there's no telling what they might say. There's no telling what they might do. But that stuff will make a man fall in line.
I am a person who gets a lot of threats. I get many ugly and scary threats against my life, my wife, my kids, my coworkers because of what I choose to say. And I know those threats don't come from the kind of people on the right who I know and love. So that's what I wanted to say on that subject. But I don't want to make this about me because, and I know this is what people say when they make things about them, but I really don't. This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to meet and spend time with comedians and talk show hosts from countries like Russia, countries in the Middle East, who tell me they would get thrown in prison for making fun of those in power, and worse than being thrown in prison. They know how lucky we are here. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Steven off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
See, it's un-American, but ABC took him off the air. It's just funny, man. Look, and again, I don't think we should even read too much into what guys like Jimmy Kimmel say. And I saw somebody in the chat making that point. They said, 1 second I'm saying that it's not coming from him. The next second I'm holding him to account. That's a valid point. I don't think we even need to take it seriously. All we know is that this guy's making a lot of money. And what he has to do to make that money is read whatever's on that teleprompter. So however Jimmy Kimmel feels that morning or however he feels that day, his God is that teleprompter. So he doesn't know how he feels in the morning. This is what you have to understand about selling out, my friends. This is what you have to understand about being bought and sold. You can't really listen to these people regardless of what they say. Because these powerful people, these elites, they wake up in the morning, they don't know how they feel until they're instructed to feel something. And they don't know what that's going to be from day to day. They have masters. They have handlers. And they are instructed on how to feel about any given issue. So they don't even know how they feel. They have the ability to read a teleprompter. And there are very similar people behind those teleprompters writing these scripts. It's not as many people writing these scripts as are reading these scripts. It's pretty small circles who are writing these scripts. But those people are like the weathermen, whether it's the presidential script writers, whether it's the people at ABC, whether it's the people at NBC, Fox News. The people who come on television are simply a byproduct. But they don't even know how they feel. So we certainly don't know how they feel. But it's like a game of telephone. They're simply passing along the message from the people who are higher up. And that's why I would never, ever be capable of doing that. I've had a lot of opportunities, my friends. I have the on-camera ability. I have the camera presence. I have the voice for it. I've been offered many opportunities that don't sit well with me. And if I took them, I'd be a lot bigger than I am right now. You know, maybe I wouldn't be broadcasting from a home. Maybe I'd be broadcasting from a studio like Jimmy Kimmel. But that doesn't sit right with me. You see what I'm saying? Because whatever I say on this platform, whether you agree with it or not, and whether I'm right or wrong, you at least know it's coming from me. And that is something, my friends, that is worth more than money. That is something, my friends, that is worth more than fame. That is something that is worth more than clout. The ability to hold this microphone and look into this camera and tell you what I actually feel and think, for right or for wrong. I feel richer than the richest man on the planet because I still have that ability. I feel richer than Jimmy Kimmel, not monetarily, but there's a richness about it that can't be captured. And I'll even go as far as to say this. You see guys in my position who do get picked up. You see guys who were once independent broadcasters and free thinkers who do get the call, because there are calls. Anybody who tells you that there's not calls that are made, well, you don't know what you're talking about. There are calls that can be made. And you can tell when somebody gets the call, especially me. I've been doing this for 17 years. There are people who we all know the names of. They got the call. And this is when people are like, oh, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. Where's your tinfoil hat? I've gotten calls of you. Everybody's an expert on every field in 2025, but we must remember there's actual experts. There's actual people who are experts in fields. I've been doing this for 17 years. I know how it works. That's really all I would say to anybody who watches any show, even me, because it would be disingenuous to not put myself in this category. You have to be very discerning, and you have to be very aware that people aren't just talking to talk. People have all kinds of agendas behind themselves when they point a camera at their face and they talk. And you need to be very cognizant of that, and you need to be very discerning as to what you listen to and what you don't listen to and what you take to heart. Because I will tell you guys this. Everybody has some kind of agenda. Even if my agenda is just to think freely, that's still an agenda. So you need to be cognizant of this. This is a scary time. Weaponized speech and weaponized distribution of information is a big deal. And it's probably more prevalent than physical warfare. It's more prevalent now than drones, than people shooting one another. That's the real warfare now. We have a couple more details here from Candace Owens. So I don't know if you guys have been watching Candace Owens lately. I mean, I'm not a big viewer of any of these right-wing political people, but I try to keep my eye on the right wing and I try to keep my eye on the left wing as well, just to know what's going on. Because again, as a person in this space who's been doing it for a long time, I'm a semi-prominent figure in the podcast space. Like, your favorite podcaster knows me. I may not be your favorite podcaster, but like your favorites, they have respect for me. So as someone who's trying to gain relevance in this space, I think it's very important to watch all aspects of it. And the whole political commentary and all these shows of all these different guys, it's becoming big. So I keep an eye on it. So I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Candace Owens because I think she's quite off base in many of her opinions. And she's definitely changed a lot in the last couple of years. But it seems like she may be changing people's minds, rather, as she continues to connect the dots with this Charlie Kirk stuff. So Candace is claiming that the media is falsely portraying Tyler Robinson, the man accused of shooting Charlie, as suicidal. In an Instagram story, she stated that his father having turned him in after a confession is complete BS. So she posted a bunch of stuff. Let's just take a look at it. So she says on her Instagram story, Tyler Robinson is not suicidal. That narrative, the narrative that was placed in the media about him having been suicidal is completely fictional, as are many other aspects of what we've been told. Candace continues, his father having turned him in after a confession is also complete fiction. To the contrary, Tyler Robinson maintains his innocence and has never even been to the UVU campus. Wait a second, what? She says there are absolutely zero photos or videos that the campus can produce to the contrary. Wow. Is that true? Chat, is this true? Are there no photos of Tyler Robinson? There's totally photos of Tyler Robinson at the UVU, isn't there? Wasn't this at the UVU? This is the photo where everybody said I look like him. I was going to put a clip of that, but I felt it was in poor taste. But you motherfuckers were roasting me on that stream. Bro says Joe Rogan respects you. Don't make me pull the clip. Don't make me go pull the clip of Rogan calling me a prodigy. That's a whole other story. Candace continues. Yeah, I got rage baited there. I can't be getting baited by the chat. No rage baiting for the host. That's bad. That's a rookie move. I just got rage baited. That's crazy. Candace continues, which is why they have produced nothing other than a blurry image, which Tyler's family knows is not him. Tyler has never once expressed a suicidal thought. I want to make that clear. The federal government is lying about absolutely everything other than the fact that it is his gun. That is the official statement from Candace Owens. She says, not that we need further substantiation, but Tyler Robinson did not author those Discord messages. I would like to again stress that he has never been to UVU campus. And I need to confirm this later. I believe he was around the campus on that day. Candace Owens continues. She says, I will have more on this later, but I wanted to immediately publish that the Tyler Robinson suicide narrative, plus the dad that did the right thing after realizing his son was guilty, is a federal concoction. Wow, man. See, this is why people think Candace Owens is crazy, though. Because Candace is, like, there's believing in a conspiracy theory, and then there's Candace Owens. Like, this is a whole other level of distrust for the government. I've never thought it would happen, but Candace has become so extreme that she's actually pushing away the extremists. Like, Candace has become so wildly extreme that she's in a whole category of her own now. Because even the extremists are like, this bitch is crazy. She's crazy. I mean, she sounds crazy. But I think this is going to be an interesting season for Candace Owens because we're going to find out how crazy she really is or how accurate she really is. She's got the whole thing going with the Macrons right now. They claim that Brigitte Macron is going to present evidence that she's actually a biological female. We'll see. I mean, Candace Owens has a lot of things right now that she's said she will stake her entire professional reputation on. So let's see if she's right. But she continues in these video clips.
Okay, I didn't want to leave you guys on a crazy weekend cliffhanger. I needed to get that information out as soon as possible. Obviously, you can probably see that I received some information, a communication, which answered a lot of questions that the public has had about the story, or rather the non-story that we are getting from the feds. The push that Tyler Robinson is this lone shooter, which they're trying to establish as a fact. Some of the burning questions that we had, okay, well, if he turned himself in, how did he also not confess? I now have the answers to that. The main point, the reason why this information came to me, is because there's a narrative being spun right now by the media that Tyler Robinson is or was suicidal. That is not true. And that's a very scary thing when suddenly they're saying he's suicidal and, you know, he's in solitary and he's not suicidal.
So how does she know that he's not suicidal, though? That's my thing with Candace, is like, I respect Candace as a broadcaster because, again, I've been doing this for a long time. When somebody has it, I got to hand it to him. Candace Owens has it. She can go on an hour and a half long broadcast without stuttering once. She's incredibly gifted as a broadcaster. But the content that she's putting out, to me, often lacks sources. What is the source for saying that Tyler Robinson was not suicidal? How would you know unless you have direct contact to him or the family, which she might? I'm not saying she doesn't, but if you do, why not leverage that connection or leverage that source as a, you know, to have some credibility here? How would Candace Owens know anything about Tyler Robinson? Does she know him? Has she? I never knew that she'd even heard of him until this occurred. So I'm going to need some sources before I believe that.
The burning questions that we had, okay, well, if he turned himself in, how did he also not confess? I now have the answers to that. The main point, the reason why this information came to me, is because there's a narrative being spun right now by the media that Tyler Robinson is or was suicidal. That is not true. And that's a very scary thing when suddenly they're saying he's suicidal and, you know, he's in solitary and he's not suicidal. So that was the reason why this information urgently came to me. Obviously, I know a lot more, and I'm going to share it with you guys on Monday. I just wanted to vet some of the things that I heard, ask some more questions from people that would know, and just to make sure everything I say is above board. And obviously, this lead led to more leads, and I want to give people a chance to respond. This is crazy. Nothing more that I can say. This is very serious. I don't know what's going on. But I do know that what we are being told has gone on is just not so. And yeah, this is really kind of going to begin, I think, to answer a lot of questions and many more questions that need to be asked. So I just wanted to let you know that what they're telling us about him being suicidal is not true.
I'd be very curious to hear where she's getting this information. Now, I'm seeing in the chat people have sent her tips. I'm seeing in the chat that the family has been in contact with her. Now, if she's been in contact with the family, this is crucial information that I think the world needs to know. But I think the world, maybe you should lead with that. You know, I'm not gonna walk into a conversation and say, I know who did 9/11. That's not going to be my opening line. My opening line would be, look, I've spoken to some high-level sources at the U.S. government. I've had tips from people with some major knowledge about this situation, which led me to the conclusion that X, X, and X, whatever the case may be. That's going to be my opening line, personally. Now, look, Candace is very successful. She doesn't need me to tell her how to do her job. But as somebody who doesn't watch every episode of her show, you know, I think that would be a very good point for her to maybe consider. Because her thing is always, well, you didn't go watch the full episode. Well, Candace, I hate to break it to you. People aren't watching the full episode of anything. A lot of people aren't watching my full episodes. They're not watching your full episodes because people have no attention span nowadays. So you can't rely on me to, you know, watch every episode. I'm not here binge watching Becoming Bridget, Candace. I don't have the time or the inclination to do that. What I can do is maybe hear what you have to say in a soundbite. If you're giving me a 2-minute soundbite, I would very much like to hear where the source is. So I think that could be a good way to maybe get more people on board. Because, again, right now as a guy who hasn't watched the show, this just sounds like conspiracy. You know, again, I know she's got connections. But the source can't just be, trust me, bro. That can't be the source. The source has to be something more tangible than this. So Candace apparently released this footage too of Thomas Crooks. This is fascinating here. Shout out JC.
Now, if you're listening to this and you are on Spotify, essentially, or on Apple, what's essentially happening here is he's just in his room and there's no bullets in it, but he's practicing firing a weapon. And his online history, there's multiple videos that are like this, which I have. His online history shows.
Interesting. So she's getting some good stuff. She's getting some good tips, actually.
Nobody is going to stop me from investigating what happened to Charlie Kirk, because it feels to me, okay, that this is a conspiracy, a federal level conspiracy, which means that there's going to be nobody.
She's funny though, man. She's like, it feels to me like this is a conspiracy, as if every other thing that ever happens in the world is not a conspiracy to her. It's like, Candace, everything to you is a conspiracy. I've never heard you be like, you know what, the official story on this one, this sounds legit. I've never heard that. I like Candace though.
Do you think it's normal, by the way, that basically every person who speaks about Israel has to basically say a statement that's like, you know, I don't want to get killed? like literally, you start speaking about it, people are like, Candace, beef up your security. That's not
Candace.
Like, excuse my language, but like that is not normal. Okay, it's not normal that people have to think about their security, because, and by the way, it's not normal that then the way that you get comfortable with it is you're like, well, you know, they shot JFK in an open car, so there's not, I mean, he's a sitting president. I mean, obviously my security doesn't really matter. If they want me, they're going to get me. That's not a normal thought process to have. We don't have that about any other country in the world, except for the one that, you know, took over ours. And that's the truth, okay? We are an occupied nation. And if it's going to take women, like, having to speak up and say that to make permission, like, to give permission to men to do the same, then I'm happy to be the first person, okay? I just want to be clear. Anything happens to me, blame the Zionists. Like, 1,000% blame the Zionists. Like let that be my parting word.
Holy shit, dude.
That basically every person who speaks about Israel has to basically say a statement that's like, you know, I don't want to get killed.
Well, here's my question for you, Candace. All the other people discussing these issues are very cognizant of the fact that they're in danger and that they don't want to get killed. I guess my only question for Candace Owens would be this. Do you want to? Like, don't you not want to get killed? It's just a question. I mean, because, you know, this is not a comment on the validity of her statement, but I will say this. Candace Owens is not behaving like a mother of two. She's not behaving like a wife in the sense that she doesn't seem concerned about all of this. I understand being a crusader for what you believe the truth is. But if I had 2 children, I wouldn't be tap dancing on this line. We just saw what happened to Charlie Kirk. We've seen what's happened to other people. What I will say is I admire her courage. I really do. I admire her courage to legitimately put her life on the line for what she believes is true. I just hope that it doesn't end up in the way that it's ended up for others. I think it would be a real shame. It would be a real shame. That's the one thing, and I would love the chance to interview Candace and talk with her about this, because it's the number one question I have when I watch her work is, she talks about people being scared of being killed, but maybe she's not afraid to get killed. It's really fascinating to me, man. But again, I admire the courage to actually die for saying what she says. If what she says about people being killed for this is true, I'll run the clip again. This isn't me saying it. This is her statement.
Do you think it's normal, by the way, that basically every person who speaks about Israel has to basically say a statement that's like, I don't want to get killed? like literally, speaking about it, people are like, Candace, beef up your security. That's not fucking normal.
You guys tell me. But again, it's as much as I'm a creator, guys, I sit back with my popcorn just like you, and I watch this shit and I can't believe it. We are living in such a crazy time. Someone in the chat earlier said informational chaos. That's exactly what we're in right now. Informational chaos. Of all the crazy things that can happen, AI, all this shit that's going on in the world, the craziest thing right now is the battle of information. And information is everything. Information is the key to all currency. It's the key to endless funds. It's the key to all invention. And the start and end of everything. It's all information. And we're in the info wars, bro. This is the info wars. This is that, just like Sean said in the chat. There we go. See, we're in the info wars right now. That is a statement that has come to fruition. And this is crazy what we're in right now. But yeah, man, this is I feel like we crossed into an interesting stream here tonight, because there's a lot of people with microphones with a lot of different agendas, and I think it's really, really fascinating. And I'll even tell you guys, I understand the skepticism on all sides of all these figures, because like I say, even as somebody who's been doing the broadcasting for a long time, from traditional radio to podcasting to television, we're in a time now where it's really hard to identify how these people really feel. It's really hard to know who you're dealing with on the other side of that mic, if they're genuine or not. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's very fascinating what she's saying about Charlie Kirk. I'll see if we can find one more clip, because I'd like to see a little more explanation about this. Let me see. I'll look up Charlie Kirk. Okay.
In the short run, he agrees that rather than send the footage, he will get onto a FaceTime call with me and he will show me the footage on his computer He did that, and I watched the footage, and I'm going to tell you what I saw. And to the people specifically, the people that are in the military, people that know weapons, I'm telling you this because you might be able to add more color or more clarity here. What you would expect to see, if given the weapon that they have said did this, the bullet they have said did this. I don't know anything about any of this, so I'm just telling you what I saw. Okay. First and foremost, there is nothing gory about this shot at all. And so again, I am still going to work with him to get me the footage so that I think it should be shared. There's nothing gory about this footage from the back. The thing that really stood out to me, and I just kept asking him to replay it over and over and over again, is that there's no blood. There's no blood. From the back. There is no blood. So I think a lot of people were wondering whether or not that bullet pierced and went out the back. I think I vaguely even remember, and Skylar, you can maybe live look this up, but like I thought the feds were saying they were looking for a bullet at some point, which is now very alarming to me. I don't understand that. How could they have been looking for a bullet? Because if I'm not seeing, and there isn't, I'm telling you, what happens in the front is not what happens in the back at all. If I'm not seeing any blood, what are we to take from that? The only thing that could make sense, if what they're saying is true and that person took the shot from the place that they are saying that individual took the shot from, it would suggest that it was inside of Charlie, right? And they would know that. The feds would have known that. So they would have communicated that they were never looking for a bullet. Because remember, one shot. So I'm very confused. I'm very confused, not by what I saw, but what I didn't see. Okay? That's
Wait a second.
pretty much all I can tell you right now.
Wait a second. Okay, so now this is getting crazy. See, this is what I'm talking about, guys. So she's trying to say not only did Tyler Robinson not shoot Charlie Kirk, but that Tyler Robinson was never actually at the UVU campus. But on top of all of this, she's not trying to say it was a different shooter. She's potentially trying to say what? That he wasn't shot? I mean, that's the only connection I can really make here. She's trying to say it was something on Charlie Kirk? Like, what are we talking? A small explosive? I mean, what are we talking about here? I need to hear this last part again.
If what they're saying is true and that person took the shot from the place that they are saying that individual took the shot from, it would suggest that it was inside of Charlie, right? And they would know that. The feds would have known that. So they would have communicated that they were never looking for a bullet. Because remember, one shot. So I'm very confused. I'm very confused, not by what I saw, but what I didn't see. Okay? That's pretty much all I can tell you right now. And I am going to try to get...
Oh, so she's trying to say that the bullet was inside of him, not that the actual thing that killed him was already on the inside. Because, yeah, again, guys, I'm trying to keep up with the conspiracy theories, too. I'm seeing in the chat, Johnny mentioned somebody alleged it was an explosive device that was on him, some sort of lapel device. Again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all the conspiracy theories because there's a lot of them. All I'm going to say is this. I look forward to seeing if we can actually come to a resolution on this. This is the first time where the cause of murder for somebody in the public space, there's 100 causes of murder, depending who you ask. There's, he was shot, he wasn't shot, it was AI, it was the government, it was Trump, it was, there's 1,000 theories. So hopefully we can come to a point where, one, we can find some solid ground with this and actually find an answer. I think it would be nice for the family. And also it just generally should be found what the answer is to this. If this was the guy who killed him, how did it happen? What was the motivation? I think the answer to all those questions should be had. And the second thing I hope that we can get back to is the focus that we lost a talented young man. Whether you agree with his views or not, you can't downplay Charlie Kirk's talent. Okay, he was a very talented speaker. And we lost a guy who most of all, above all, was promoting family. He had a family. That to me is the most important thing about him. I can take or leave the political stuff, because I've told you guys this before. I'm not a politic fan. I really am not rooting for anybody in politics, to be honest with you, because I think pretty much everybody's full of shit. So I'm not rooting for Charlie Kirk. I'm not rooting against these people either, but I'm not rooting for any of these people. But the one thing I really liked about Charlie Kirk was the fact that he really emphasized the way that family is dissolving, the way that it's slowly being eroded by today's society and the moral principles and values that people are trying to instill in each other and into us. He really preached about that part, that men and women are becoming miserable because of lack of community and lack of family. The fact that stuff like that was included, that to me goes beyond politics. That's real stuff that needs to be talked about today. So that's why I think personally the world was better with a guy like Charlie Kirk in it. He had a lot of good political opinions. He had a lot of questionable political opinions. But the opinions I really, really connected with was the fact that he was pushing some of the Christian principles, but he wasn't pushing it in a religious way. He was just pushing it as a matter-of-fact way. Backed by data, backed by science, backed by the fact that family and community and a purposeful life is actually the better way to go. Not just in religious theory, but actually in proven theory as well. That is something I will always appreciate about Charlie Kirk. That's a big deal, guys, especially as a young man, 26 years old. I've lived through many different phases already of relationships, not having relationships. And, you know, at the time that I really discovered Charlie's stuff was around the time that I realized that I do want a family one day, which is a crazy thing to say. The fact that I do want a wife, the fact that I do want a sense of community. A lot of my life, you know, I just have been solo traveling for the past 7 months. So a lot of my life, I've been a lone wolf. You understand me? I've been a lone wolf. But there's a lot of stuff that can happen with that. There's a lot of bad things that can happen with that. And there's a lot of bad things that can happen from marriage and family and all this stuff. But there's also a lot of good things. And I think that in today's society, for young men and women, especially in their 20s, we're being pushed really, really hard. We're being sold the idea that you're happier if you say fuck everybody and go do whatever you want and live by your physical convictions and desires more so than anything. Hedonistic pleasure and thrill seeking. That's really what people in my age range have been sold pretty much since, I mean, I think it started really in the 90s, but I mean, ever since the early 2000s. So not to get off on a whole rant about this, but I really do appreciate the fact that Charlie Kirk spoke to those issues, because I think if you're going to have a massive platform, if you're going to reach hundreds of millions of people, you should probably not just do it to prove yourself right politically, and not just do it to, flatter your ego, and not just do it to be like, the other side sucks, I was right the whole time, but to actually try to impart some wisdom on the people listening too. Like, actually try to do some good for the community that's beyond just political bickering. That to me is a big deal, and that's what I don't see most people doing. So yeah, that's what I would say about Charlie Kirk, man. Like, especially in the time that I started hearing his stuff about family, that's when I realized, you can live the Casanova lifestyle, but then you end up potentially like Jack Nicholson, 85 and fat and alone. No disrespect to Jack Nicholson, but I remember seeing the interview that he was miserable. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's a good message to push to young people, that banging a hot chick in Ibiza 3 months ago and having that memory, when you pursue a lifestyle that's just driven by physical desires, that's about as good as it gets. I'm sure you'll get more, and I'm sure you'll meet more girls, but it'll always be, well, yeah, that girl a couple weeks ago in Thailand. I tried to come up with a place I wasn't just at, and then my brain fucked up and said exactly where I just was. I'm not applying it to me necessarily. But that can be as good as it gets, bro. I think there's more than that. I think there's better than that. I think there's better human experiences that a person can have. So, yeah, that's it, guys. We went off on a little sidetrack. I didn't look at the chat for the end. You guys are probably telling me to shut the fuck up and go fuck myself. I'm trying to have like an earnest moment of opening up on YouTube, and then I remember I'm on YouTube, so people are probably just telling me to go fuck myself. But that's it, and that's that, guys. So I appreciate you checking in. I appreciate you coming to talk with me. It's been a very interesting stream. I'm back in action. I did take a little break. But we're back in action. Let me see what this is. You said you're 26 years old, so you started your career at 9. Yes, sir, I did, actually, yeah. So if you look up, there's lots of stuff on my channel about how I got started, but I was 9 years old, going on 10 when I started doing this, yes. Start your own chapter like Charlie. Now, that's an interesting idea. AR says, what's up with Kamala doing all these interviews? Yeah, what's up with the Kamala interviews? Why don't we look at that? Is there a good... I wonder if there's a good clip I can find quickly, because I didn't prepare this part. If there's a good clip I can find quickly, we'll do a reaction, because I know Kamala has a book out. Of course she has a book. You know what, man? I'm not even mad at her for having a book out, dude. If I was Kamala Harris, I would be writing a book like a motherfucker right now. Perfect thing to do. Perfect time to make some money. Look, if you run for president and it's clear that everybody hates you, and mostly everybody hates you, I mean, you're never going to be the president. You're not going to win. Start doing speaking appearances and cash out on the book. I'm not even mad at you at that point, because at that point you're making money, but it's not off the taxpayers' back. Like, if you're going to get rich, I don't want you to do it at people's expense, right? Like, I don't want you in government and like Nancy Pelosi having like quadruple her net worth, like what it could theoretically be if she was paid by honest means. Like, I don't think that's a good scenario. But if you can become independently wealthy, not on the taxpayer's back, I think that's actually not even that bad. Somebody said she was drunk here. They always say she's drunk. I mean, she sounds drunk. I mean, I'm not going to condemn anyone for saying she was drunk.
Closest election for president of the United States in the 21st century.
Wow, I know that's well. And a Howard grad did that.
Here. And a Howard grad did that.
Period. Bro, she's so funny. I feel like Kamala Harris is like, it's kind of hard to hate her because she just reminds me of like my aunt. Like, she's trying to use the cool lingo that all the kids use these days. She's like, period. We did that. Like, she just saw it on TikTok 4 days before, and she knew she was going to meet with like some Gen Z millennials, and like, she's like, okay, what are the new ones? I know that's right. And period. Okay, those are the two I'm going to use today. And she goes and she uses it. And I'm not even mad, because she just wants to feel cool. If you're not hurting anybody, I don't really care what you do.
In the 21st century.
Wow, I know that's well.
Period.
And a Howard grad did that. Here.
Period. She was so satisfied with herself when she said it too. That's ridiculous, bro. I love her, but as president, we would be cooked. Oh, she definitely shouldn't be president. I mean, there's no question. She'd be a terrible president. JD Vance speaks on her comeback tour. I want to see more clips of it, though, first. I guess they said she was on The View. So why is she able to speak now all of a sudden? Like, she was the one who was being held away, hidden away, not doing any interviews, not doing podcasts, not doing press conferences, and then all of a sudden Kamala Harris now is on a press tour. Why is she able to speak now all of a sudden? Like, she was the one who was being held away, hidden away, not doing any interviews, not doing press conferences, and then all of a sudden Kamala Harris now is on a press tour. Why is she able to speak now all of a sudden? Like, she was the one who was being held away, hidden away, not doing any interviews, not doing press conferences, and then all of a sudden Kamala Harris now is on a press tour. I think if she would have done more talking, she might have had a better chance at winning before. I mean, she refused Rogan. She refused everybody. Might have been a better idea before.
This person and what we just saw in terms of a presentation at the United Nations. I talk about it. I talked about, remember in the debate?
Yeah.
They laughed at him the last time he was in front of the UN.
Yeah, this time
you remember just about, I don't know, several weeks ago, that meeting with Xi and Kim Jong-un and Putin?
Yeah.
You think they're not laughing?
Oh, they are.
As they create a new...
Oh, well, she'd definitely be able to handle Putin. I mean, good God. Can you imagine Kamala Harris dealing with Putin? Just laughing. Sitting at a table with a dictator, cackling. I don't think she has any room to talk there.
Just about, I don't know, several weeks ago, that meeting with Xi and Kim Jong-un and Putin.
Yeah.
You think they're not laughing?
Oh, they are.
As they create a new axis of partnership, what's happening, you bring people into the Oval Office. I have spent a lot of time in the Oval Office.
Too much time.
I have spent time in the Oval Office with the president, receiving our allies and our friends from around the world. And consistently, we have seen Donald Trump bring people into the Oval Office, be they a United States governor or the head of a state of a friendly nation, and embarrass them and ridicule and demean them. That is not what a president does. This individual who occupies...
She does kind of sound drunk, though. Like, this kind of sounds, again, like my aunt, like at Thanksgiving, but definitely after two and a half Chardonnays. Like, once the third Chardonnay starts getting a little lower, there's still some in there swirling around in the bottom of the glass, but when the third Chardonnay starts to get a little lower and there's lipstick on the rim, that's kind of what Kamala Harris sounds like to me. I mean, I don't think she's an inherently bad woman. I don't think she's an evil woman, but I do think there's something going on there, for sure.
Does. This individual who occupies our White House right now,
the People's House,
has decided that he will be an emperor in his mind who will demonstrate his power by demeaning and belittling and making people feel small. But this is...
Okay. Interesting. What is it? They said Bernie threw her under the bus? I got to hear this one.
You said the Democratic Party has turned its back on the working class. You'd said something pretty tough when you were speaking to this crowd about Kamala Harris.
One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the working class of this country.
Ouch.
Well, no, I don't think that's, I like Kamala, she's a friend of mine, but her core consultants, were heavily influenced by very wealthy people. How do you run for president and not develop a strong agenda which speaks to the economic crises facing working families? You have more income and wealth inequality today than we've ever had. You have 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck. You got a healthcare system which is broken and dysfunctional, and despite spending so much, we're the only major country not to guarantee healthcare to all people. How do you not talk about those issues?
See, Bernie has good points in his interviews. Like, he can back up what he has to say. And I've even said that before myself. I've said, if the Democrats want to win an election, all they have to do is just talk about what people actually care about. When you waste all your time blowing hot air about woke and trans and race and all this stupid shit that nobody actually cares about, because especially in the rest of the world, nobody gives a shit about that. Like, I moved out of North America this year, and that's one of the things I realized, like, outside of North America, because Canada gets lumped in too, so I'll say North America. Outside of that part of the world, like, nobody gives a fuck, bro, about this woke debate and trans rights versus not trans rights, and nobody gives a fuck. The rest of the world is spinning, and they just deal with what's in front of them. They go to work, they take care of their kids, and they move on. If the left could get more in tune with that reality, I think they'd start winning elections again. Because when the right wing becomes the party of finances and economic growth, well, you can't really beat them because everybody's poor right now. People don't have any money. We don't care about woke mentality because mentality isn't getting my kids fed or paying for their school. So I would say that really, if the left could become the party of finances, the left could become the party of economy, I think they would start winning elections again. But they keep wasting time on stupid shit that nobody actually cares about. And groceries are still high. Exactly. Okay, we got one more clip. This is J.D. Vance speaking on Kamala.
The problem is not that Kamala's campaign was too short, it's that it was too long. That when people actually listened to what she had to say, her polling went down and down and down. I think that if we had had a 150-day campaign, we probably would have had 3 additional Republican senators, and Donald Trump would have won by an even bigger landslide, because the more people know about Kamala Harris, the more they realize there's no substance there. I mean, agree or disagree with Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, they actually had substance. They could actually articulate a viewpoint. I listened to Kamala Harris for 90 seconds, and I actually feel like I've gotten dumber in the process, and I have no idea what she actually believes. That's the problem with Kamala Harris, and it's going to continue to be her problem unless she actually learns how to develop a viewpoint, articulate it for the American people. Just say what you actually believe. Don't do this word salad, talking around in circles. It doesn't work.
That's funny. Shout out to the chat, though, man. I see people agreeing with what I'm saying, people disagreeing. I love both. That's why we're here, is for both. Susan says, thank you for saying what the rest of the world thinks. Thank you. Jay says, we care because the trans stuff affects our kids. Jay, I completely agree with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about that. What I'm saying is that these issues aren't points of contention in other parts of the world. They are in some, but not in most parts of the world where it actually bleeds into the family or bleeds into children. For example, I just spent a long time in Thailand, probably the highest concentration of trans people in the whole world. I did some journalism about many aspects of Thailand. One of them was even interviewing some trans people to try to get their thoughts on it and asking them what they think about the American trans culture. And they think American trans people are nuts. Like, that, legitimately, I'm in a place where there's trans people everywhere, but not a single one of them will walk up to you and say, I'm actually a woman. They don't actually think they're a woman. They understand that they're a dude dressed like a woman. And these issues have no repercussions socially whatsoever. So this is what I'm saying. It's not even an issue of these things. These things exist in other parts of the world, but it's only in the West where people are obsessed with them. That was one of the biggest eye-openers for me. The places where there's actually lots of trans people, these aren't even issues. It has nothing to do with the schools. It has nothing to do with the family values. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just personal freedom to do what you want to do. And that's what it should be in America. If you're gay, straight, black, who gives a fuck? That's really the truth. This is where we got to get to. You can do what you want to do and stop being hung up on it. It's really that simple. And, you know, that's part of what I learned going to different countries this year. I'm like, these people are in tune with reality more than my country, because my country is completely fucked in the head. Here in Canada, we have debates over shit that doesn't matter. Like, we have debates over all these stupid identity politics, and we have a 50-30 rule. That's the thing that cracked me up when I came back. The 50-30 rule. So Air Canada, for example, the airline, they want to hire 50% immigrants and 30% like underprivileged groups on their airlines. So they want 50% to be visible minorities, and then they want the rest to be gay, trans, or whatever. Like, in what serious fucking country would somebody even think of that type of legislation? Like, this type of shit to me is so ridiculous. I can't even wrap my mind around it. There's no serious country on the planet that would do this. Because we have obviously the luxury in this part of the world to sit around and think about this stuff. It's insane. I don't know how we even think of that. But it's unbelievable. See that guy? In Thailand, we don't talk about it with our kids or in schools. Exactly. See, I'm sure I have Thai subscribers now. Shout out to my Thai people, man. I got so much respect for the way you guys operate because you guys let people live like adults. People can do whatever they want to do as long as they're not hurting anybody. And you don't have to like it or support it, but you don't get to stop it either. That's how a free society should operate, man. But yeah, out here in Canada, it's like I've had like a reverse culture shock since popping back in on all this stupid shit. Even looking at the commercials here, like in Asia, they have very high beauty standards. And they're very nationalist as well. So like everybody that you see in a commercial in Vietnam, they're going to be Vietnamese, period. Because what a crazy concept. In Vietnam, the people in the ads are Vietnamese, right? Crazy concept in the West. I come home to Canada. Not only is it all these different forces, like they're forcing the different races in every commercial. They're forcing the same-sex marriages in every commercial. Not only that, but we've been told that beauty standards are also bad. So everybody is ugly on TV too. So you turn on a commercial in Canada, everybody's fat. Everybody looks like shit. Everybody has acne in all these commercials because beauty standards are bad and destructive. Because apparently we're supposed to watch television to get our fucking moral compass about what we believe. But everybody's fat. Everybody's ugly. And it's like a monopoly of different people who look like they're not even from this country. This is what I'm talking about, bro. Like, I don't understand how you can operate a society like this and expect it to work. That's my overall point with the Democrats or whoever it might be who's pushing this stuff. Serious countries don't operate this way. They think it's strange and bizarre to operate this way. That shit blew my mind. I'm watching TV like, bro, everybody on TV here looks like shit. I can't believe it, dog. Like I say, I'm having the reverse culture shock. Hilarious. I love some of these comments. Some of these comments are so hilarious. You're moving back to Europe. Hey, man, shout out to you. So that's it, guys. We had a good stream today. I appreciate you checking in. We're back to regular content. Like I said, I've been hopping from country to country. So I've been trying to, get myself right with the time zones and get myself right with everything. But we're back in action, everybody. So I appreciate you checking in. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe. I'm live very frequently. We have tons of different live streams, original interviews, reactions, different stories out in the field as well. I mentioned Thailand. If you want to go check out my Thailand content, we have a whole playlist. I did 30 days of live streams in Thailand and then also some journalism about life there. We talk about some of this stuff that we're bringing up here. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Shout out to everybody who tried to rage bait me in this stream. There was a lot of good rage bait in the chat. You guys almost got me multiple times. You guys are getting better at it, so I appreciate you. Thank you for the rage bait. You keep me on my toes. I really appreciate that. And we'll be back covering more stories in the coming days. God bless everybody. Stay safe. Hug your family.